On April 4th, 2024, a few days ago, we received a message. We as Wealthtribers, we received a message from Vuka. We as Vuka Investors, we received a message and it read, 2023 annual results announcement. We were very excited because we've been waiting for these things, right? I mean, it's April, Q1 is over, so we were wondering when are these results going to be announced. And so the message read, Dear investor, we are pleased to share that Acorn Student Accommodation REITs paid out a total dividend of Shillings 480 million for the financial year 2023. In continuing with its strong dividend policy, the Acorn Student Accommodation I-REIT declared a final dividend of 0.47 shillings per unit, bringing the full year 2023 dividend to 0.77 per unit, in addition to what was paid out as the interim dividend of shillings 0.30. This represents a full year dividend yield of 3.6%. In addition to the dividend payout, the Acorn Student Accommodation I-REIT closed the year with a net asset value of 22.03 per unit. And if this is the first time you're hearing of the concept of net asset value, that is why I have a guest today. He's going to explain what that means. So hold on. So the Acorn Student Accommodation I-REIT closed the year with a net asset value of 22.03 per unit, a 2% increase from 21.59 shillings in 2022. The Acorn Student Accommodation I-REIT successfully acquired Qwetu, bringing the total assets under management to 9.2 billion shillings, positioning the Acorn Student Accommodation I-REIT for long-term growth. And so, if you received this message and you're wondering, what does this mean, right? What does this mean? Should I continue investing in this REIT? How did they calculate? How did they calculate these dividends? For how long should I continue investing in this dividend? That is why we are having this conversation today. And today I have a new guest. If you've been part of the Wealth Tribe long enough, I've interviewed almost everyone at Acorn. I've interviewed the CEO, I've interviewed other managers at Acorn, but today we have a new face. His name is Elvis. He's the growth manager at Vuka, and now I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself and tell us, what do you do at Vuka?
Okay. Hi, Agatha.
Hi, Elvis.
Thank you for inviting me to speak.
You're welcome, and welcome to the Wealth Tribe.
Thanks for inviting me to speak to the Wealthtribers today.
Yeah.
So my name is Elvis Onjoy. I am the growth manager at Vuka Investment Club. I simply specialize in enabling Kenyans to understand how they can invest in regulated real estate and generate wealth, right? Now, just to recap at what Vuka is. So Vuka, in simpler terms, right? Vuka is Kenya's first alternative to direct real estate investments, right? So when you join Vuka, you're investing in what we call the Acorn Student Accommodation Income REIT. Again, in simpler terms, we're simply telling you you're investing in what we see in the market today as Qwetu student residences, right? So this REIT enables investors to pull their cash together, right, and own a share of Qwetu student residences, which is the most preferred student accommodation in Kenya currently. So that's who I am, that's what we do, and looking forward to breaking down the results and just having this conversation with you.
Okay. All right, and before we begin, I want to give some form of shout out to our Wealthtriber who DM'd me on Instagram, and she told me that, Agatha, I really appreciate the fact that with your previous YouTube videos, you actually showed us your Vuka dashboard. And the thing this lady appreciated most is that my current investments in Vuka are 42,000, right? You guys have seen my dashboard, so this is not a secret. And so she told me, I always thought that for you to start investing in anything, be it money market funds, be it bonds, be it the Acorn I-REIT, you have to have like $500,000, $1 million shillings. So I have never invested. And she's in her mid-30s.
Wow. Okay.
She's in her mid-30s. So she told me, I've never invested in anything because I always thought that I have to have, a huge chunk of money. And when I watched your YouTube videos and I saw your dashboard and you said you started with 5,000 shillings and I saw that currently you have around 42,000 shillings, I was like, I have to get started. And that is how she started investing in Vuka, and that is how she started her investment journey. So yes, that is one of the most beautiful things about the Acorn I-REIT and Vuka, the platform that you use to access the Acorn I-REIT, in that it gives an opportunity to almost all of us to be able to start investing in real estate. Because the last interview I had with the CEO of Acorn Investment Management Limited, he said that is one of the biggest advantages of Vuka, in that when we think about investing in real estate in Kenya, it's very capital intensive.
Yeah,
For you to buy a plot of land in Kambulu, for example, you need 500k.
Yeah.
For you to build up rentals, you need millions. For you to build your home and to be invested, for you to buy an apartment in Kilimani and all those Kileleshwa, you need millions, right?
Yeah.
And so this means that a lot of us have always been standing by the sidelines thinking that real estate is an investment for the rich.
Yeah.
So this is an equalizer, and so I just wanted to reiterate that and say I was very excited by the fact that encouraged her to get started. And as we are continuing with the conversation, of course, the most important thing to any investor is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is this investment worth it, right? Because at the end of the day, as an investor, you have to think about the returns.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, we're having this conversation today. So maybe, Elvis, we can start with how are the results, how are the dividend declarations, or how are the results calculated?
Yeah.
Because as I told you earlier before we started this conversation, when I look at my dashboard, I'm like, I'm like, is this really what I want to be doing with my money? So how are these things calculated? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Agatha for that interesting question. Also shout out to the Wealthtriber who started investments journey.
Yeah.
I usually say investments, when you look at investments, it's a long-term game. Right? You just don't start today and expect to have it all mastered by tomorrow. You also have to spend time educating yourself. Now, even as we discuss the VUCA returns, I think I usually like telling investors that I speak to, right? The first thing that you need to understand about real estate investments is that it's a long-term game.
Okay.
Right? Again, VUCA offers a target return of 11% per annum. Again, over a 10-year holding period. This is based on a target of 7% of dividends and a target of 4% of capital appreciation. Again, it does not mean it's a guaranteed return, like probably other investments you've ventured into. It also does not mean that year on year you will get 11% per annum. This return is simply an average over a 10-year holding period.
Yes.
So, as is with real estate in the market today, if you venture into that apartment in Kilimani, for example, you don't expect to sell it 6 months or 1 year down the line and gotten 11% return or 18% return, right? Again, you get a lot of questions of, but rather invest in real estate and get 18% per annum. And one thing I like to make very clear, right? Real estate in Kenya is a highly unregulated field, right? So you've seen, if you go in real estate chasing the returns, right? Someone tells you they'll give you 20%, 16%, and you clearly don't understand how they're making that money, right? What it means is that you will enter into this investment, year one, you'll probably get a return, you'll get excited. So you'll end up putting in more money because you're chasing returns, and at some point, it just busts, and you lose out on your investments, and now you will consider real estate as a bad investment. So for us, we usually like saying that we're the first to offer a regulated real estate investment. So in this case, in 2023, our return was 5.6%. So let's discuss how the return was actually.
How did you arrive?
Return of 5.6%. So on one end, we offered a dividend yield of 3.6%. This dividend yield was determined on 2 book closures, right? So the first book closure, which we usually call the interim, we declared a payout of 0.30 shillings per unit, right? Then the final dividend yield was 0.47 shillings per unit. Right? Now, how we calculate this return is we simply look at the revenue businesses.
Before you proceed, what is book closure?
Very, very interesting, right? So book closures is simply the periods as which we analyze our books.
Okay.
So in a year, and it's basically in a lot of investments, you have 2 book closures, the first 6 months and the second 6 months. In this case, our book closures is between January 1st to 30th June. That is a first book closure. So if you have all your units that you're holding within that period, right, you qualify to earn the first interim dividend, which as of last year was 0.30. Right? The second book closure is the second half year is up to 31st December 2023 in the case of last year, where we declared a final dividend of 0.47. So as an investor, if you've been investing the full year, you are going to realize the 47.
Yes.
The 0.77 full
in
year
total.
dividend yield in total, right? Again, just another question we usually get is, when do you do these payments, right? So for the interim, we'll do a book closure as of 30th June, right? Then we have to analyze and audit our books. Then we'll do an AGM and declare the payout. So probably you'll get a payout in September. If it's 31st December, again, there's a 60-day period, right? 60 days period where we have that period to audit the books again, evaluate the properties, then declare a return via an AGM. Then if you invested up to 31st December, you should expect to get your dividends by the month of May, right?
That is very clear. So now all of us are on the same level. We understand what book closures are, right? So what we are saying is that what he's telling us is that if, for example, I have 1,000 units on Vuka, right, which I bought between 1st of January to 31st of June, and then on 1st of July I buy another 1,000 units, the units that I bought on 1st of July are not going to be used to calculate my return for the first half year of exactly. So let's get that clear, and then we continue. So book closure, then
so that's, and it's very clear, it's very important to make that clear, right? Because again, that will also impact the return you see on your dashboard, in the sense that you'll say you saw 1%, but we declared, for example, in the last year 5.6%. So in this case, if you started your investments in August, right, and last year we declared a full year return of 5.6%, right, you'll only end up getting for the half year, right, and that will be based on the book closure, right? So to calculate the dividends, we simply take the revenue the property is actually generated, right? In simpler terms, deduct our costs, then we realize an operating profit. Right, so out of the profit, we via an AGM again, we will declare the percentage we shall pay out to members, right? By law, as you may not be aware, law regulates we do a payout of 80%. Right?
Yes, 80% of your
we
profits.
Are fond of usually even doing a higher payout. Like in 2023, our payout is around 99%.
Really?
So that gives a number of 240 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now that once we get that number, we divide it via the number of units that we've actually issued, right? And in simpler terms, that is how we decide, or we not decide, but get to the actual dividends we're paying out.
Yes.
Right. On the other side, there's a capital appreciation, which we pay out looking for a target of 4% per annum, right? To get the capital we pay out, we look at what we call the net asset value. The net asset value is basically the value of the underlying assets.
Okay.
Right? So we've taken each property, we've evaluated each property via an independent auditor who will tell us the value of these properties is X amount, right? Then again, we will divide it by the number of units in the market issued. Then we will get the new NAV, which is, in this case, it's 22.03.
Yes.
Right? So that is how we calculate those returns.
Okay. Yeah. And in case this is the first video you're watching about this concept of investing in real estate investment trusts in Kenya, the assets he's referring to are the Qwetu student accommodation residences, Qwetu and Qejani student accommodation residences, right? So if you're a resident in Nairobi, or you've been to Nairobi, when you're driving around, or you're in a Uber, in a matatu, when you're moving around Nairobi, basically, you've probably seen Qwetu or Qejani. Most people say they've seen the buses, the student buses written Qwetu. So those are the assets that we are referring to here. Those are the assets. It's saying that an independent valuer will come and value those assets, and then in order to arrive at what is the net asset value or the value of each unit, they will divide by the number of units that are issued, right? Based on their Capital Market Authority regulations.
Exactly.
So it's not guesswork, and that's why we are saying in 2022 the value of a unit was 21.59, and in 2023, or as of now, it is 22.03.
Yes.
That is how they arrive at it. So I hope that's clear. Yes.
So it gives you that 2% capital appreciation that we realized last year, and we'll get deeper to discuss that. I think you've mentioned a very good point, whereby what are the assets, right?
Yes.
It's very good we make it clear that when you're investing through Vuka, rather as a REIT, you're investing in tangible real estate assets, assets that you can actually see, assets that actually generate income, right? So it can be classified as a scam in this case, and that is what happens with a lot of real estate investment. Someone tells you you're investing in a property, but you don't see the property. So for example, as of last year, we now have 7 properties under the I-REIT. That is Jogoo Road, there's Wilson View, Qwetu, Ruaraka, Hurlingham,
Karen.
right? Karen is not yet
into the I-REIT.
Like last year we onboarded Qwetu Hurlingham, right? And we also onboarded Qwetu Badaya Heights, which is the one just opposite the first one near USIU, right? So again, we just want to assure Wealthtribers and just the public at large that when you invest in this, you're investing in actual tangible assets. Your investment is again backed by the asset. So there's no way you can one day wake up and find you've lost your investment. Right?
And you know, when he says that there's no day you'll wake up and realize that you've lost your investment in Vuka or the Acorn I-REIT. So to be clear, Acorn I-REIT or Acorn Income REIT is the investment, and Vuka is a platform. So you need an account on Vuka, which is the platform that allows you to buy these units on the units of the Acorn I-REIT. And when we say units, we do not mean a physical house, okay? We do not mean a physical house or a physical unit. We mean shares. That is what we are referring to. Now, so I was saying that when he says that you can't wake up tomorrow and your investment disappeared, it's if you've been part of the Wealth Tribe long enough, you know how many times I've interviewed a conveyancing lawyer, and she has taught us, you know, the legal process of buying, you know, apartments or land, right? And so what happens in most of those cases, especially bare land in Kenya, is that somebody will tell you, oh, this is my piece of land, right? And then you go and buy it, and then years later, somebody else occupied it, or years later, you find that Elvis has the same title deed as I, right? So that means in that case, you have lost your investment. And that is what we mean when we say real estate is not regulated in Kenya.
Exactly.
So that is the market that is not regulated. The land, the apartments, somebody can disappear with your money. While now, that is why the Capital Markets Authority started the concept of REITs, right? So that it starts to regulate real estate investments in Kenya. So that is what he means.
Exactly.
Yes. So now that we understand, right, how the returns are calculated, so maybe now we can talk about, so I remember in 2021 the return was 9.4%. The return was 9.4%. In 2022 the return was 8.2%. And in 2023 the return was 5.6%. Obviously the Wealthtribers are smart enough to understand that is currently that is below the inflation rate, right? So the question is why? Why is it that low?
I think that's a very interesting question and a very good question, right? And I would just like to take us back a bit, right? Just to understand how this scheme works, right? So one, I would just like to start by saying how this product is structured is that it's a long-term real estate vehicle, right? Meaning year one the return could be X, year two the return could be X, year three the return could be, in this case, 5.6%. Right? But how you should look at it is in the sense that you've invested from, let's say, year one. And as you invest in real estate, you look at it long term. So you look, for example, of a holding period of 3 or 5 years, right? And in this sense, if you actually look at if you have a platform, it's your platform, the return actually accumulates year after year, right? So again, it's an investment that can weather the storm. Right? At times the return will be lower, right? At times it will be higher, right? And again, even as we discuss the return, because I know the next question is, so why was the return lower? Right? And I just want to venture into explaining that for just a few minutes. Right? So for example, specifically in 2023, the return was again impacted by two things. Right? And to explain this, we need to understand the business model of the REIT. Right?
Let's go.
Yes. So for this investment, it's highly pegged on us, or rather the REIT manager, being able to raise enough capital to acquire properties on time. Right? Now, as me and you know, Kenyans still don't believe as much in the capital markets, and it's one of the things that is our job, that we're trying to educate Kenyans on how to invest in the capital markets, right? We're trying to move away from this thing where we believe to have wealth you must have a physical asset, right? Now, because of the lead time it takes, right, to raise enough capital to acquire these properties, we have to supplement it with debt. Right? And this debt will enable us to acquire the property and again position the investment for the long term, right? Because we're not just thinking today or year one or year two, we're thinking of it is a long-term investment. So as we acquire more properties, economies of scale increase, right? And the return will continue becoming better and better. So we acquire properties and we position the product for better returns in the future. Now, for example, in this case, for example, in terms of the returns we had this year, right? In 2022, for example, we took a debt around 750 million, right, to help us acquire Qwetu, Hurlingham, right. Now this debt was fully paid out in 2023 together with financing costs, right. Again, in 2023 we had to take a short-term debt, right, around 1.5 billion to enable us to acquire Qwetu Abadel Heights 2, which is the one in near USIU, right. And this debt was just to help us position the product for the long term. Remember, each year we try and acquire 2 new properties.
Okay, that's a goal,
right? So the impact of this again had a 1.8% to be exact impact of the dividend, right? So dividend yield we've said is 3.6. If we didn't need to supplement with that, the return would probably been 5.4% of our target. 5.4 around 7% of the dividend, right? But again, it was very important for us to do this because again, we position the product for long-term growth, right? We're not here then tomorrow or next year we've disappeared. So as an investor, as you continue holding your investments, you will enjoy the returns. As I said, it's here to weather the storm. Right?
You will if you hold it for a long term, you will enjoy the benefits of this acquisition.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? You will enjoy the benefits of this acquisition. Right? If you look at it in the short term, then you will not enjoy. And I really like saying, just because, for example, Vuka is a sort of changed the real estate game, right? It does not remove the basic element of investing in real estate, whereby today you'll acquire X property, then you'll expect to get X return. You still have to hold it long term, right? If you look at all the real estate reports that are done, year on year, you will see the property market is changing. There's a different yield here, there's a different yield there. So it's the same thing. You don't expect to invest now and get...
I think I understand what you're saying, that just because Vuka came to revolutionize the real estate market in that now it's liquid, right? Because even from the CEO's interview, he said, the problem with buying a 3-bedroom house and all of a sudden you have a 100,000 financial emergency. You can't sell 1 bedroom. He literally said that, right? So you can't sell 1 bedroom. Exactly. So Vuka came to revolutionize this market in that if you have 3 million in Vuka and you have 100,000 financial emergency, you can actually sell units worth 100,000. Despite the fact that is what Vuka does for us, it doesn't negate the principle that real estate is a long-term investment, right?
Exactly.
So
if you hold it long-term, you will get an accumulative return. Right? Same thing as you buy land today and you want to sell it 5 years down the road. Right? So that's how we need to look at this investment, right? Okay. So the second thing we did that also will have impacted the returns, right? So the REIT manager decided to add what we call a furniture, fittings and equipment reserve, right? So this is sort of a maintenance levy, and it's a global practice, right? Because we sit back and we look at these properties. These properties obviously need maintenance, right? And we don't want to be picking this money off the revenue the properties are generating, because that affects revenue, right? So in 2023 we decided to implement this maintenance levy across all the properties. And moving forward, it won't be there, rather it will be at a very reduced level. It will only be for new properties that we acquire. And this, we did it now so that we are able to protect investors in the sense that next year you won't find it in the books whereby we've deducted revenue to cater for maintaining the value of the actual property. Again, so again, this also had another impact around 1.8% on the actual net asset value, right? So that's why it brought it down to 2% versus a target of 4%, right? But again, in investments, we usually say we operate in a very fiduciary manner, right? In the sense that we want to put, by law, we just need to put the client's interests first, right? And that's how we look at the investment in full. We look at it as a long-term investment. We just don't think about tomorrow, right? So those two things, as you know, for example, the debt is more of a short-term addition we put into the asset. We'll clear it, and in the coming years the return will really be better. So it's just to position it for long-term growth and scaling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, at least we'd say we understand. Of course, if you need more information about, how much was put into these things, how much debt they acquired, there's the description box. I'll put in, more information and exact numbers. But at least now you understand why we didn't get our maybe desired 8% return. And so hopefully in the long term, right, we will get our desired results, because as you said, the target is 11%. And so again, I'm not supporting him, but to reiterate, because he is here to educate us about Vuka. I do not work for Vuka. By the way, the Wealthtribe thinks I work for Vuka. I do not.
It shows you're passionate about enabling them to realize good investments.
Yeah, exactly. And so what else? So I was saying that this being reiterate something I've said before, and something the CEO said, and something I'm sure he's trying to tell us is that if between you and brokenness, if you have 50,000 shillings, right? Please don't put that money in Vuka. As in, do not put money in Vuka that you think you're going to need in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, to pay school fees for your kids, to pay your rent, to pay your electricity bill, to run your life in the short term. To run your life in the short term. Don't put that money on this platform. If that is what you want, the CEO give us permission. Please have a money market fund, right? And if you've been part of the Wealthtribe, I sing about money market funds every day, and I know why it is important to have an emergency fund in a money market fund. So you can't put your emergency fund in Vuka. It's very important to be clear about that. And again, that is why I do not have 1 million shillings in Vuka, because because at the moment I can't afford to both build an emergency fund and at the same time put 1 million shillings in Vuka. But of course, because the Wealthtribe, there are many people in the Wealthtribe, people who are in their 50s. If you can afford, please do. But always remember, this is a long-term investment. Please don't cash out your investment and say, that thing was a scam. It's not a scam. It's just that you have to hold it long enough for you to realize your gains.
And I think just to add to that, right? And again, it's very crucial, right? As you build your emergency fund, you don't want to not have an emergency fund then impact your long-term investments by withdrawing from each time an emergency comes.
You're actually affecting your compounding.
And we like to be very clear. Right? Don't put, and it comes from the top, even as you will say, don't put your emergency fund, your emergency cash in Vuka, right? Look at Vuka as at that point you want exposure to real estate, right? You can now venture into it. I usually like asking people, you have your emergency fund, you probably have invested in a circle, you have a pension, so what's next? So Vuka comes up as a solution for what's next, right? So always invest with an actual purpose. Understand your goals. Understand what you're trying to achieve. Again, Vuka is not competing with money market fund. We actually encourage our investors to invest in a money market fund. First, we'll have a conversation with you and we'll tell you, have you invested in any other
diversification
diversification aspect? But it's very clear, if you've not started building an emergency fund, right, that is where you need to start.
That's true. And actually a lot of people DM me on Instagram, because I'm constantly talking about these two investments, right? Money market funds and REITs, and people always ask me, should I start with the REIT or should I start with the money market fund? And I always ask you, have you invested before? If the answer is no, then don't get into Vuka, because it means that in the next 2 months you start telling me I need to sell my units.
It makes sense. It's also someone, if you to venture into a property today, right, into actual real estate property, even a plot of land, you're not going to sell it in 6 months. You're not going to make much.
Okay, is there anything else you feel that is important for you to add in terms of the 2023 returns and the calculations?
Well, I will just like to be very clear, right? And just enable people to understand, right? That this investment, I like repeating it, this investment is a long-term investment, right? Look at it as a growth stock. It has the potential of actually growing and it keeps on growing, right? Each year we acquire 2 new properties, right? Like this year we want to acquire Qwetu and Qejani. Current, right? So again, it's regulated. There is demand, right? Currently, we've put in the market 4,500 beds that are actually operating. Research shows there's actual potential for 110,000.
110,000.
Right? So the market is there, and we realize competitors could come up, and we don't want to address the entire market, right? Because the market keeps on increasing year after year. We just want to put a good product, right? Your investment is secure, it's safe, it's a regulated real estate investment, and it has a potential to to grow. That's all I'll say. And again, as you choose to even invest in Vuka, again, understand your goals, invest with an actual purpose. Right? Don't just come in and exit, because it's what we actually see. Right? Always spend time to first understand it. Don't let excitement get into you because you've had it's Qwetu, so you get super excited and want to invest.
On my YouTube channel, you'll find, I think maybe now there are almost 20 videos to help you understand first the concept of REITs in Kenya, real estate. Beyond Vuka, the video to first help you understand the real estate market in Kenya, REITs, real estate investment trust in Kenya, the structure of REITs in Kenya before now we start talking about the Acorn I-REIT, because actually Acorn I-REIT is just one of the 4 REITs in Kenya. So it's not the only REIT in Kenya. It's just that this is the reason I talk about this a lot as opposed to the others, because I've been asked that. It's just that this is the one that is accessible to the retail market. The other REITs in the market, they are only accessible to people who are 5 million and above. So this is the one that falls in my forte or in my target market, right? Because the people that follow me, very few of them have 5 million and above. And otherwise, if you have 5 million and above, the government through Capital Markets Authority assumes that you can actually afford the services of a financial advisor to tell you. You would not be watching YouTube videos, for example, right? You'd be able to afford the services of a wealth manager or a financial advisor to tell you where to put your 5 million and above. Yes. What else? Is there anything else you want to add? Also, what is the future of Vuka what is the future of Vuka and Acorn now that we know that the market needs 110,000 beds and you guys are still at 4,513 beds, so we have a long way to go. So what's the future? What should we expect? And also, first of all, before you answer that question, thank you so much for removing these transaction fees. Hey, thank you for removing these transaction fees. They were killing us small investors. They were too high. So that one,
we sat back and listened to what investors are saying and realized, for us, we also want to change our culture, right? And a belief on how people invest, right? So we want to, for example, we want to aggregate even up to 50,000 Kenyans into the capital markets to make them believe in financial assets, to make you, just from our name, to make you cross over, right?
Vuka.
To investing, to making better investments. So we pull those costs out. So we no longer have the annual fees in this case. We no longer have a service charge when you're buying. We only charge a 1% when you sell. We reduced the joining fees. Probably someone is asking, so why do you even still have these fees, right? And you see, these fees simply go towards managing the platform, right? Again, when you call, you expect to have someone to help you understand, right? And that's how those fees, we can accumulate those fees just to be able to offer you the platform.
Okay. Earlier on, you mentioned that your goal as Vuka or as the Acorn I-REIT is to give us an annualized return of 11% over a 10-year period. But the truth is, in 2023, the return was 5.6%. So what are you doing as a company to make sure that you actually achieve that goal? What is your return optimization plan?
Okay. Thanks for that very good question, right? Right? And it's very important, right, that investors really understand that we are just not seated back and just posting
watching
return,
us suffer
and just watching investors say the return is low, etc. Right? So we actually, the I-REIT manager actually sits back, right, and actually comes up with different techniques or different plans to optimize these returns, right? So the first thing we're actually aiming to do, right, just to be able to again meet a timeline or a deadline of acquiring assets on time, right? We're looking to infuse long-term debt, right, and long-term affordable debt just to supplement the capital raising. Again, our goal is to be able to afford this acquisition through equity, right? But again, we understand it will take time. But the main goal is to get Kenyans to actually invest in a property that they can own and call.
Yes, I think before you even continue to help us understand your return optimization plan, now that we've brought in the concept of, how are financial markets funded, right? Or how funding occurs in the financial markets. So you've thrown in the concept of long-term debt, long-term affordable debt. And then you've said that ideally your goal is to finance these acquisitions through equity.
Yeah.
Assume there's someone who's never heard of these two things. So what is the difference between these? Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. So that's fine.
Yes.
So as I've said, as the fund manager, the fund manager sits back, right, and actually looks at these returns and comes up with actual plans, right, to optimize the return and just ensure we are growing in the right manner. As I said, we target to offer 11% to just make this investment even more rewarding, right? So the first thing we are looking at doing, right, is infusing what we call long-term debt into the facility, and this will supplement our local capital raising efforts. So currently our local capital raising efforts is Kenyan investors. It's basically retail investors buying units, or let's call them shares, right? And that increases the equity holding. So our ideal way of raising these funds is through equity, right? Which is basically people buying the actual shares and taking ownership of the project, right? Rather of the investment itself, basically owning it, right?
I mean, it's a Kenyan product.
Yeah, it's a Kenyan brand.
Yeah,
we should take pride in owning it, right? And calling it our own, right? Now, again, we realize the project needs to grow, as I've said. At times the lead time can take a bit of time. Right? So we go out there and also just look for investors as well, right? Who are willing to, again, give us long-term debt so that we can acquire the properties on time. Right? But so we are working on those two aspects. We're also very passionate. That's why we like sitting with Wealthtribers and having this conversation. How can we get Kenyan investors to actually own these properties? Because again, debt will always affect the returns.
Yes, because debt can be expensive.
Yes, because debt can be expensive. It actually is. Right? Like
debt is expensive.
Last year, because of the government, the returns you get from government securities, it reduced the amount of investments Kenyans were doing
on other
investments, which again is a risk. Right? Yeah. I will say first focus on diversifying, and then I like using an example of Ghana and what happened with the Eurobond and it defaulting. Right? So I'm not saying it will happen in Kenya, but it can happen. Right? So instead of rushing to put all your eggs in one basket, think about first actually diversifying your investments. Right? The second thing we are aiming to do is to retire the 1.5 billion debt I had earlier mentioned that we had taken last year, right? And we're aiming to do this by 2025, right? And basically we want to establish what we call a global equity level vehicle, right? Which will go to international markets, different countries, IFCs, for example, to actually get them to also invest in the actual project, right? And the third thing that we aim to do.
So you're looking for equity externally also?
Yes, we're also looking for equity externally on the global markets in general. Right? And with that, we want guys to actually just invest so that we fully retire the aspect of debts and the return will improve. But again, it's a long-term thing. And that's the most important thing in this project, especially given the inflation rates, right? Like we monitored 2022 and 2023, the inflation rate was 7.6 and 7.9 respectively. So this year we're providing for rental escalation, right, to actually match inflation. So probably we'll wait at 7%, right? And this is just to mitigate the impact of inflation, to also now increase the revenue we're actually generating, right? And with those three aspects that we're fully working on, right, we expect to again be able to deliver even a better return, right? But again, I always like to say it's long term, right? The returns again are not guaranteed, right? We always have to evaluate the books, and we have a team that is always working behind the clock to ensure the properties are actually performing.
I think this is a good time to remind Kenyans that the concept of REITs in Kenya it's a relatively new concept, right? I think the first time it was tabled in Parliament was around 2013. So it's a relatively new concept, and I mean, investing in Acorn or the Vuka platform, it's since 2021. So 2021 is 3 years ago,
just
right?
3 years ago,
So this is a relatively new concept, a relatively new investment. So in a way, they do deserve, the benefit of time, right? To give them the time they need in order to optimize this investment. And so, as he's saying, because this investment, and I always explain this to my one-on-one coaching clients, that because this investment has only been existing for 3 years, a lot of Kenyans don't know about it.
Yeah, true.
The average Kenyan doesn't know about it. And I always tell people, if the average Kenyan doesn't know about a money market fund, like I can tell you, on a daily basis,
Yeah.
not week, on a daily basis, I get around 20 people who ask me what is a money market fund.
Yeah.
And imagine how long money market funds have been existing, right? So
Yeah.
if on a daily basis I'm getting 20 people asking me what is a money market fund, imagine how many people don't know the concept
of
yeah. So that is why then you will struggle with raising capital through equity, because there are even people who have money sitting in banks and they don't know that you exist, right? Or even retirees who have so much land, right? We learned that Kenya's entire GDP is sitting in unproductive land, right?
True,
so there are retirees out there who have, so many pieces of land and they don't have the cash flow and they actually do not know that you can even liquidate half of your land and invest it in such a liquid investment if you still want to stick to real estate. So that's a big problem.
And I personally don't blame Kenyans, right? Again, this is not something we taught in school.
Yes,
right? A lot of Kenyans don't understand the capital markets and how to move their assets to financial assets. I actually sit back and I look at it in three ways, right? So we have beliefs, right? Emotions and actions, right? So there's already a belief we have, right? And I like take an example that my CEO likes to use, right? Take a Maasai, for example, right? To them, they believe owning cows is the only way they'll have one.
Yes.
Right? So they attach an emotional attachment to cows. So
how many?
Yes, how many cows they have. So they end up buying more and more and more. Right? So you see, it's very hard to change his mindset. Remember, he's just a drought away from total financial ruin.
Yeah.
Right? So usually that's why we like having these conversations whereby we first spend time to educate you. Right? Again, Kenyans venture into investments out of excitement, right? And when you enter into excitement, you'll get burnt right? if you don't understand what you're doing, right? And for example, in the case of real estate, we have a passion for real estate, right? So we buy the many parcels of lands, you go to the outskirts, but it's just that aspect of the understanding, right? And again, as you mentioned, real estate again is unregulated most of the time, right? And that is why people get banned. So you always have to be very careful, not just with real estate, but any investment you enter. But hopefully, as we grow and keep on growing, even with such communities, we'll be able to actually convince and get more and more Kenyans to actually invest in the capital markets.
Yeah.
Right? Ours is a bigger picture. It's not just about VUCA. It's about changing a culture. Right?
Yeah. You have
Kenyans
a bigger job than just giving people returns.
It's a bigger job. Yes, because in the future we want VUCA to even have different investment options and not just the
REIT itself.
It's just that we discovered real estate is where there's a huge problem currently, and how people look at it and invest.
Okay, so I don't know, when we were talking about return optimization, it was about the debt. Was there something else?
It's just the debt, retiring the debt, going to the global markets
to acquire better equity,
and the rental escalation of the properties.
Okay, all right. What is rental escalation of the property?
So rental escalation of the property is simply increasing the rent.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to assume.
If you live in a rental place, your landlord will come and at some point they're like, economy ngumu. We have to increase the rent by X%.
Yes. And now that we're talking about rents, I recently, met someone or a student who interacted with a student who lives at Qwetu, because they stumbled upon my YouTube videos and then they realized, she's actually talking about where I live. For her, she always thought that this is a hostel, right? There's no investment behind it. And so she, DM'd me and asked me about it, and I asked her, so how much rent do you pay at Qwetu? And she said 30,000. And I was taken aback, like, you're a student. How are you paying 30,000 per month for a hostel, right? And so for me, I felt that is on the higher end as compared to the common mwananchi and how much rent we pay, right? Even so many people that I know who are my age and who are working even in corporate jobs, or even they have their own small businesses, they don't pay as much in rent. So Swali ni Elvis, how are these assets performing? Do you actually have occupants in these hostels?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think if I just to address 30K rent, right? See, these projects again are based on research, right? There is again also a target market, right? That's why very recently we also launched Qejani, right? So we have Qwetu, which in this case you can say is a premium in product, right? Then we realized
in a Kenyan context it is premium.
It's a premium product. And then we realized there's again another market that want to have this sort of the same facilities, right? Same amenities. So we developed this new brand called Qejani. For for them, right? Now again, what we usually forget when we try and calculating your rent and comparing, right? See, this facility offers you internet, for example, internet. There's a study rooms, right? There is good security, right? And unfortunately, when you stay out there, you don't count all those aspects, all those benefits you actually get, right? So again, this is a very safe space for you to stay and actually study, right? So the rent is again very justified based on the amenities we actually offer, right? And also just on to your question on how the property is actually performing, right? So for example, last year our average occupancy was 88%, which is very good, right, for porters, which keeps on showing there's demand, right? If you walk into, for example, Qwetu Hurlingham or Qwetu Wilson and look for occupancy, you'll probably be told there's a waiting list, so you have to get into this waiting list. So the demand is constantly there, right? Other things we aim to do with each of our properties is partnerships, right? So for example, we have current partnerships with more than 150 institutions. We have partnerships with the likes of MasterCard, where they bring students to stay. Additionally, we aim to
like those exchange programs.
Yes, like those exchange programs. We aim to build each property we acquire under the REIT, right? Property is developed, right? Is developed within a radius of an anchor university, whereby it's easier. So even a student who's paying extra rent doesn't have to necessarily worry
about transport,
right? And where the properties are far, such as Jogoo, there's transport being offered, right? So the properties are, I will say, are performing exceptionally well. There is continuous demand for them, right? We now have two brands that caters to two different target segments, right? Because we realize they will come and ask, right? So yeah, the property, I would say the properties are performing quite well. The 3-year average is around 87%. So again, it's a very good asset class, and unlike in real estate where you will just venture into real estate, right? Then you, because it's not working out for you, you'll say there's a real estate bubble. What you need to understand about real estate is you just need to get the segment right, right? You need to get who it is you're serving, right? And will this property generate income for me? So I think that is one thing Acorn really got right.
And also, at the end of the day, if it gets to a point where it is not an income generating asset, then we expect that CMA will come in and say, let's change this thing to something else, right? Because it's regulated.
Yes. So the future of this of the REIT is, for example, where we sit. So we have future plans. We've researched on different segments, right? For example, we've realized at Qwetu or Qejani, it currently serves students, right? So this student is already used to a certain type of lifestyle. So when they finish school, the gap is they probably now have to go to look for the hostel when now they are young professionals and they're working, right? And currently, with the current situation, Nairobi is more of a renters market. A lot of us coming up, the Gen Zs, we're becoming more of renters, right? We want to achieve financial freedom and live from wherever, right? So we realize there's a gap in that sense. So we're already thinking about the future. So we realize there's a gap for young professionals, right? You finished university, school, you've started working. So where are you going to
Where will you stay?
Right? So in the future, again, we launch another property targeting that segment. Again, it will be under a different REIT, right? Because this is a student accommodation.
This is an accommodation REIT,
So it will be another REIT for actual professionals. And we'll keep on growing, right? We've understood there's a need for putting people in communities and offering the amenities within space and making it affordable, right? Now it's very hard to convince someone of our generation, right? That you need to buy a house, that you need to pick a mortgage and actually buy a house. So realize the renters market.
It's our parents who believed in mortgages.
It's our parents who believed in mortgages. Now you sit with someone young and do for them the maths, they're like, no, they can't.
Yes, that's true. I've done a whole video about how mortgages work, and a lot of younger people will be like, nope, especially when they fear the commitment.
The commitment. You're committing for 15 years.
A commitment, and it makes sense because if you think about the job insecurity in this country,
exactly, it's you can't.
You have a job today.
Sure.
Next year you don't. So how do you expect me to continue servicing this mortgage?
And you'll be brought in to pick this in a very nice way, right? But when things get tough, you lose out your cash.
That's true. And we're here to protect your wealth at the end of the day. We're here not to interrupt your compounding journey.
Exactly.
And so now we understand how the future of Vuka, how the returns are calculated. We know how you arrived at 5.6%. We know how what you're doing to make sure that in future we actually get that 11%. Let's hope we get there. So why should we continue investing knowing what we know now, right? Knowing that 2021 is on 9.4, 2022 is on 8.2, and 2023 is 5.6. Why should we continue investing? Why should I not sell? I've never sold my units by the I've never sold any of my units on Vuka, but why should I keep investing?
Okay. That's again a very good question as to why you should keep investing. During the conversation, I was saying this investment is, look at it as a growth stock, right? You know, we look up to different people, right? In our lives, you've probably seen someone who started investing 10 years or 20 years down the line, right? They probably were buying stocks when a stock was X amount, right? Then now the stock is currently X amount, and you start beating yourself up. Why didn't I invest
back then,
right? So again, this investment will actually grow. It's a long-term investment, right? And it will benefit people who invest as early as now, the most, right? When we started, unit was 20 shillings, now it's 23, right? So look at it long term. If you hold investments for, let's say 10 years, and we achieve this target of where the valuation, the net asset value increases by even 3% or towards the 4% per year, right? You'll get to a point whereby you find the return is not 11% and you want to jump in, but your cost of entry
your cost of entry is higher.
Then you will see someone like Agatha who started way earlier in 2022 and you beat yourself up. And that's what we actually do, right? We miss out on the opportunities when they start out. Then later on when it becomes very interesting and you're like, this thing actually grew. Now you start asking yourself, why didn't I? Right? So one, I would say, look at it as those investments that has the potential to actually grow, right? Look at it if you're willing to diversify, right? Look at it if you're looking for exposure into real estate. I usually say Vuka again is ideal for individuals who are thinking long term, are looking to diversify, are looking also for exposure into
the real estate.
Again, it's very crucial to understand your goals. So again, invest in Vuka once you understand your goals and what you're trying to actually achieve.
That's very important, because when people ask me, should I buy a bond, invest in money market fund, or get into Vuka or get into a SACCO, I always tell people that is not the most important question.
Exactly.
The most important question is, what is your goal? What are your goals? Because as we said, if your goal is to build your 1-year emergency fund, then no, you're not supposed to buy a bond. No, you're not supposed to be in Vuka. No, you're not supposed to open a SACCO account, right? If your goal is, for example, to, I recently interacted with someone who's like, I would like to buy a piece of land in Nanyuki in the next 10 years. And then, so I'm starting to save now, and then I'll probably need a form of debt in order to service that, and then build holiday homes because they're passionate about tourism and in the industry. I was like, then in that case, you should have a SACCO, right? Exactly. Then if you want to invest in real estate long term in a liquid way, go into Vuka. So the first question is, what is your goal? Once you understand what is your goal, you also need to understand, is it short term, is it mid term, is it long term? And after you answer those two questions, then you can choose an investment vehicle that gets you there. Usipande basi ya Mombasa kama tukakwenda Kiambu. Please.
And I think just to add on that, and just from interactions I've had, right? I really feel the goal should be financial freedom, right? The goal should be being able to wake up at whatever time you want to wake up, right? The goal should be being able to stay from point one, being able to stay in different places as you like. Right? And I'll give an example. Sometime back, I was at the coast, right? And I went with a few of my friends, right? Then we visited some hotel, and it's something I realize a lot of Kenyans do, right? You've probably decided you're going on holiday, right? You've booked yourself for 4 days. You go there and you find someone, right? And especially like comparing it to the West, where they are more advanced in understanding capital markets. You find someone who has booked in for 2 weeks, and you start asking yourself, why can't I enjoy a holiday for 2 weeks, right?
Why my holiday so short?
What is this person doing different that I'm doing different, right? For me, it brings that idea of the goal should actually be, how do you achieve financial freedom? Again, I understand Kenyans love moonlighting. It's a belief that to make money you have to start multiple businesses. You forget the work you have to put in to ensure
perfection or a good job in each of those side hustles. We're chasing
what I would call cash flow. We want to make money on a month-on-month basis, and forgetting to do the actual maths, right? What is it actually costing you, right? So But now, on the other hand, as you forget to do that, you want to achieve financial freedom.
Yes.
Right. So I feel there's usually a very huge gap, right, between those two aspects. And it just goes back to look at your goal.
Yes. Yeah. So the goal is financial freedom at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. You want to wake up and do as you please.
Yeah. So when should we expect our dividends in our accounts?
Yeah. So we're aiming to pay the dividends by May. So we'll have an AGM at the end of April, right? Thereafter, we'll also have an investor briefing for Vuka investors within the month of May. The message we got actually said we'll do
an investor briefing
just so that you can also hear from the I-REIT manager. Right?
Yes, that's very important.
Yeah, it's very important just to have a deeper dive into the actual investment, so that we're just bringing the investors together, right, to actually ask them our questions that they also may have. Thereafter, we'll probably end up paying the dividends in May, right? And then, as I said, the next book launch is on 30th June, so keep on investing. The two new properties are expected to increase the revenue for a better future and better dividend payouts.
Yeah, we need an investor briefing. I mean, once in a while I see people on my YouTube channel commenting, are these people real?
Yeah.
So it's like people actually want to know. You have to prove to investors that you're actually real, because, as we said, this is a relatively new concept. And just in case somebody watches this video in April, why are we not able to buy units at the moment on the platform? I've been asked that a lot.
I will also get a question a lot. So what happened is that between the months of Jan and February, because we usually issue units via supplemental offer. So we do a rights issue, which enables us to issue more units to raise funds to actually acquire properties. So that was done in 2022, usually given a period by the regulator. Right? So in this case, a period one side lapsed, and we also depleted the units because investors were taking up, the uptake increased, right?
A lot of Wealthtribers.
So that happened. So now, once that happened, we had on the back end, we have to announce our results, right? Then we have to go back to the regulator and say, okay, fine, these are our results. This is our next plan. So in this case, we want to acquire Qwetu and Qejani current this year. So now we have to do a rights issue, whereby we issue new units to raise capital, right? To actually raise the funds to purchase, to add these projects into the I-REIT, right? So we should be able to, investors should be able to buy units at the end of this month, right? So it takes some lead time between listening the results and getting the approval. Again, it's a very regulated field, so everything just has to go to the regulator, right? It's a fiduciary manner whereby the interests of the investors are taken first, not our interests. Right? So that's why we've not been able to buy units, but we should be able to buy units at the end of April. Again, we're doing a rights issue, so we'll also give a discount to encourage uptake. Right? So you'll be able to get a discount on the actual growth of the actual capital appreciation. So in this sense, you're buying sort of a lower price, but you're realizing a better capital appreciation quite early.
Okay. Right? So the goal is, if you want to take advantage of the discount, you top up your...
Yes, you basically top up. You top up your dynamic wallet. Once they're released, you also get a chance to continue buying, right? But we encourage you to top up your wallet. Again, the discount period is again a short period, and it's limited units.
Yes, it's limited units. So if you want to take advantage of that, which I already topped up my my account, because at the beginning of the year I shared with Wealthtribers that for the whole of 2024, I have this goal to buy units worth 5,000 shillings per month on Vuka, and this is based on my income level, right? So if you can afford less, it's okay. If you can afford more, it's okay, right? At the end of the day, we always say it is your financial freedom goals, right? So and it is your income, so we chase the right things, right? So if your priority right now is to build an emergency fund, it's okay, finish with that and then go to the next goal. And so, any parting shots, Elvis?
Let's grow your wealth together.
Yes.
That is what I would say.
Okay, your parting shot is, the Wealthtribes slogan, growing your wealth together.
Yes.
All right, so it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Agatha, for having me. Looking forward to having more conversations.
Yes.
Looking forward to talking to more Wealthtribers who are interested in investing in Vuka.
And as we end, I would like to encourage you that anytime you have an issue with understanding what is the difference between the dynamic wallet and the static wallet, anytime you have a problem with loading up your wallet, maybe you're a Kenyan in the diaspora, please call them, right? Yeah.
Send us an email.
Yeah, send them an email. Please contact them, because I get a lot of DMs from on Instagram, because people think that I don't mind responding, and I always respond. But anytime you get an issue, a technical issue, the first thing is to email them or to call them. And are you responsive by the?
We are very responsive.
Yeah.
We aim to respond to any query within 24 hours.
Okay.
So in a day, you should be able to get a response. You can also DM us on our social media pages. We're also very responsive there. And we'll address your queries.
Yeah. So if you go on Instagram and search Vuka Investment Club, they have an Instagram page and that is active, and they respond. And so with that, asante sana.
Thank you as well.
Yes, so as always, man, this is like the 20th video about real estate investments trusts in Kenya. I tell people, like, the average Kenyan had about REITs from me. That is a bragging right I have. And so I'll continue to educate you guys about, I'll continue to educate Wealthtribers about the concept of REITs, Vuka, the Acorn I-REIT, about real estate in Kenya, and generally other investment options. Thank you. If you have further questions about the 2023 financial results by the Acorn I-REIT, please leave them in the comment section. I will get Elvis to answer those questions. All of them. None of them will be ignored, right? Yeah, so please ask. Go as deep as you can, dissect the results as much as you can, and I will include the link to the actual financial results, because I've had DMs of people asking me, where can I find these full year results, right? So I will leave a link to their full year results. So ask your questions. Don't forget to subscribe, right? Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like. And with that, asanteni sana. See you on the next one.